Okay, so welcome everyone to our Local Skills Improvement Plan stakeholder meeting. My name is Anna Christie. I'm the Chief Executive of the Sussex Chamber of Commerce. I'm also joined by Claire Witts, who's joined us as the Skills Project Director, and she's only been with us just over a week, overseeing the project. And I'd also like to welcome Dan Shelley, who's my non-executive board director and who's also been instrumental in the LSIP for the Chamber. So this is the agenda. This is what we're going to cover in this afternoon. We'll go through the actual process, the governance and the board, creating those insights and the demands of the project, and then the next steps and then questions. However, if after each section, we'll see if anyone's got any questions, please, as I said, unmute yourself, raise your hand, or put something in the chat so that we can come to you. Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. I think the numbers are still going up, Claire. We've got 59 so far. Okay.
Excellent. Okay, so it falls to me to kick us off with the LSIP process. And I'm literally just going to take you through a bit of an overview and what we'll be doing going forward around the development of the trailblazer and what the benefits of the LSIP will be as well. So Sussex is one of the 8 trailblazer areas in the country that's being funded by the Department for Education to develop an LSIP. And the purpose is to basically break down barriers between employers and providers, identify what the skills needs are in the area, and also help develop a much more responsive local skills system. The priorities that we'll be working towards will include gaining a better understanding of skills and enabling Sussex to bounce back from the impact of COVID, extending the collaboration between businesses and providers to co-design new curricula, developing innovative and effective ways of reaching employers and fully understanding future skills needs as well. Then we'll be taking all of this important intelligence that we'll be gathering in and developing effective tools to support providers to adapt their offers for young people as well as adults. So in developing the LSIP, the Sussex Chamber will be marshalling on-the-ground intelligence from employers to articulate what the skills gaps are, but also what the future needs across the area will be. We'll then identify and set out what the needs for change will be and why they're needed as well. And we'll be looking to maximise and optimise the mix and delivery of provision, improve progression pathways and career choices for people, and have greater employer engagement and investment in skills as well. We'll agree a roadmap for the delivery of change that includes local action to improve responsiveness and what specific interventions are going to be needed to address the barriers that we're finding around the skills system. And what these interventions could also include bringing providers and employers closer together regarding provision, and having that greater collaboration around specialisations for the delivery of provision and making that more effective and more responsive. Raising demand and leveraging innovation and business support, and also looking at those cross-cutting skills such as skills for net zero and digitalisation. So benefits, the success of the LSIPs really does rely on the involvement of the businesses in the area, and not just big business, but businesses of all sizes and across all sectors as well. The development of the LSIP Trailblazer for the area will provide lots of benefits to these businesses, and as you can see here, there's quite a few, but they include things like increasing productivity, ensuring a locally grown talent pool, and a talent pipeline of young people coming through, economic growth, enabling employers to have a greater say in what is needed locally and the skills that they need for their businesses, and also developing a system that is much more agile and flexible to help meet their needs. Oops, gone forward a little bit too much. And then also the success of the LSIP is very reliant on the involvement of our provider partners as well. And the benefits to the education sector include having a much clearer and understandable set of what the local skills needs are. Being able to develop much more flexible quality provision that's able to adapt more quickly and to the changing needs of businesses as well as being able to support people getting the skills that they need for their careers. And now I'll hand over to Anna, who will take you through the LSIP governance and board arrangements.
Should we just stop there if anybody has any questions on the process itself?
Yeah, I was getting ahead of myself. Yes, of course.
Okay. Just to reiterate what Claire has just gone through, that's in terms of the process, the overview of the LSIP, how we're going to develop this trailblazer plan, and the benefits to business and to the providers. It is so important that we have that collaboration. That is going to be key in all of this, and that there's that collaborative joined up approach, but there's that engagement from business. So we need to make sure this is business led and that we involve all the businesses in feeding into what those challenges are that they're facing and what the skills gaps are. So I've got a question in the chat that's just come through. What is the time frame for each of the three stages? There's intelligence, identifying the change need, roadmap for change. Okay, I think we'll come to the project timeline a little bit later on, won't we, Claire?
Yes, we've got a bit in there about activities and what we'll be doing when. Yeah,
and we will share this presentation so everybody will get a copy of the slides. You don't need to take notes. And what are the evaluation criteria from DfE? Good question. Just to explain the whole process as well. We've given an overview of the process. The governance and the structure and the timeline and everything from DfE has been delayed. They were originally supposed to provide the guidance back in August. We've just submitted the first stage funding the middle of September and still waiting for feedback. And we're also waiting for our letters to come through appointing us as trailblazers. Unfortunately, the timeline to develop this plan doesn't move. We have until the end of February to develop this plan and put our proposal forward to government. So it's an extremely tight timeline, even though we haven't got the official guidance or anything yet. We have to start working on it. Let me just see if there was anything else. So that's the time frame. But I think as we go through the presentation, we'll be able to identify the stages that we'll go through in terms of developing the plan.
There is also a query from Jess Sumner asking, does it involve employers and skills needs of other sectors aside from business? And I think she probably means regarding the voluntary and community sector as well. I would say we do actually have priority sectors that we're looking at, and we're looking at 6 priority sectors. One's digital, advanced engineering, manufacturing, tourism. What am I missing?
Construction, land-based, and health and care.
Yeah. However, we do want all types of businesses and all types of organisations having the opportunity to feed into this about skills needs, because obviously there's lots of transferable skills out there and lots of cross-cutting themes, as we've mentioned.
Definitely. And it's really just to reiterate as well that unfortunately a lot of the delays in agreeing the contracts and the governance and everything are completely beyond our control. It's still with the DfE, with the Department for Education. And I think it's really important that we reiterate that and that you're aware of where we are. We're not alone. Of course, there's 7 other trailblazers and we're all in exactly the same position. We've really had our hands tied in terms of what we can do, because whatever we do at the moment is at risk, because we don't have anything approved or finalised at the moment. However, the project is still going ahead. It still needs to go ahead, and that's what the DfE have reiterated. So the evaluation, the criteria and everything else, all the guidance will come out from the DfE. They're saying hopefully in the next week. So fingers crossed we'll get that by the middle of October.
Would be nice.
So in terms of the governance, one of the key criteria parts from the DfE was to ensure that we have a very strong governance. And this was also part of the bid. We have to show that there is a structure in our approach. So Sussex Chamber has a board. I have non-executive board directors that I report to. And this is part of the Chamber network in terms of our strict governance and reporting processes, having that strategic input and feedback into what we do or what I do in leading the Chamber. We will also developing an LSIP project board, which will also help provide that guidance for the LSIP plan. And then we will have 2 sub-boards, which will be the employer business-led demand group, as well as the provider, which is the supply side, in terms of the providers in further education and higher education. So that's the structure of the boards, and we are just finalising the terms of reference and the structure of these boards, and inviting people to come along and sit onto the LSIP project board or the employer and provider groups. Just to reiterate, the employers, we do not have the capacity to go out to all businesses. There are over 60,000 businesses in Sussex, and that's why it's key that we involve and have the support from all of the employer representative bodies, the town chambers, the business organisations, and other membership groups such as Sussex Modern and the Wired Sussex and Make UK for manufacturing or construction industry training board. It's really important that we feed in to those groups as well, so that you can go out to your members and get those inputs. And we're just developing a communications plan for that, so that you can all go out to your businesses as well. So with regards to the project board, the purpose of this is really to make sure that it does build on the work that the 2 LEPs in the area have already developed. So the local enterprise partnerships, you have Coaster Capital and you have the LSIP in East Sussex. So they already have a skills advisory panel, which is the SAPs. And it's important that we work together in collaboration with them, as well as other skills groups that already exist in the area. So the terms of reference are just being drafted. We'll be speaking to partners regarding the representation. It needs to be a senior decision maker that will sit on the LSIP board from whether it's the LEPs, the local authorities, but also the businesses, and ensuring that we have sector leads as well from business to be represented on this board. And if there are any businesses that are interested, please can you contact myself or Claire at skills@sussexchamberofcommerce.co.uk. So in terms of developing the trailblazer, the employer side, there are focus groups that we're going to be, focus group sessions that we're going to be holding, literally from now right through till November, end of November, beginning of December. They'll be in partnership with other organisations that I've mentioned, like the IOD, CBI, Wide Sussex, Sussex Modern, West Sussex Growers Association, and others, to reach as many businesses as possible. They will be gathering intelligence, they'll look at the skills needs and gaps, There will be a mix of workshops, it will be surveys as well, polls, and lots of ways of engaging and making sure that we can have those inputs and those insights. And then from February to March, this is where we'll have the sessions on really, it's probably January to February actually, it's more developing the sessions on those solutions, gathering that feedback so that we can develop this plan ready to submit to government. And then government will be reviewing it up until May before we get feedback. So in terms of the priority groups, in addition to these existing sector groups that will be targeted, is to provide as many opportunities for that employer feedback to occur. So we really need, whether it's the sector groups from the chamber or from skills groups that already exist, and you've got task groups already formed, it's important that you feed into these discussions in terms of whether it's digital engineering or manufacturing, land-based green tech. It's equally though, if there's sectors on here that we haven't covered and there's businesses that get involved and we identify that there are some gaps and needs, it needs to be brought to our attention because that can be developed as part of the plan, that there was a gap in this area and this is what came out of it. So we're not saying it's just these sectors. This is just an indication of the growth sectors and the largest sectors at the moment in Sussex, but there will be other areas that we will need to identify where the challenges lie. We'll be working with same timescales, a range of existing wider skills groups, make sure we're not duplicating anything. So if there are already skills group sessions happening around the county, it's how we can add value to those, and we can make sure that businesses can get involved in those meetings. So if, for example, Coastal West Sussex Partnership are having a skills meeting, or some of the subgroups, task groups at Skills in Sussex are having meetings, how can we make sure businesses can feed into that? We will then put forward questions and a format in terms of how those groups feed back to us so that we can start to gather that data and all of those insights. And then with regards to the provider, that's where we have to, this links in with the Skills Development Fund. So when we submitted the original bid, the LSIP bid, there was also another bid, which was the Strategic Development Fund, which was put forward by all of the colleges in Sussex, and that was led by Chichester College Group. So all of the colleges got together and they identified key areas that they will be developing. They also won their bid. So it's fantastic that we've got the two trailblazers, the LSIP and the SDF in Sussex. The colleges are working on projects that will cover things such as decarbonisation. It will look at the carbon literacy, it will look at hydrogen, centres of excellence for electric vehicles, and it's all around the green technology. But there may be areas that we haven't thought of and other skills gaps. So it's not just all about green tech for the LSIP, that the SDF is focusing on the green tech, but we might see other things that challenge what's being put together and everything. So that's what the colleges are currently working on. And they're also in the same situation. They've had delays, they're waiting for the letters, they're waiting for confirmation. Their process is slightly different. It is revenue and capital funding, and they've got about £7 million that they need to spend by the end of March, I think it is. So they've got a very huge ask, should I say, that they need to develop this programme in the next 6 months or so. We're also working with all of the training providers that were mentioned there, FE, higher education, and Careers and Enterprise Company and others.
Marvellous.
So,
we do have some questions in the chat. I think, yes, Dan has kindly answered Andy's question about green technologies. Yes, it is one of our priority areas to be looking at, and also looking at it kind of in a cross-cutting theme way across all sectors as well for green technologies.
So that I see that, health and social care are their sectors. That is a priority sector. Green tech, that's been mentioned. Anything else there?
Don't think so. Does anyone else have, sorry, I'm sharing my screen, so I can't see the majority of people. And if you have your hands up.
There was a question from Sandra.
I've just seen it,
How chairs of corporation and or other organisations could get involved. So I did respond to say, how do you want to get involved? Because it's a process, but we can fit you in any kind of way. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's got to be that collaborative approach. We need to work with everybody, the providers and business, and just make sure that we are feeding into this. And so if you've got any ideas, suggestions, please do contact us. And then, we're open to any approach at the moment. The green thread, yes, there is a green thread about the chairs. So that's, I think we've covered everything there. What is done with the plan once it's produced? Oh, that's a good question. So the plan goes to government for their review by May. The aim is that once approved, we've got the 3 years to develop that plan. And that's when it's evaluated. It's been really developed with the training providers and FE and AT to make sure that it's working. And we've got that period for evaluation and seeing what needs to be tweaked and adjusted. But the aim is that the plans would get approved and funding then come through to develop and put the plan in place for the next 3 years. Possibly longer, it could. The whole aim is that it will be funded for a lot longer as well. But that's what they've initially indicated. So unless there was anything else that I missed, Dan, is that correct? My understanding.
It's still uncertain, but there's likely to be a kind of oversight and monitoring purpose for chambers in the trailblazer. We're yet to see what will happen with other areas that aren't in a trailblazer area.
Yeah.
Indeed. Emily's got a question for us around, are we looking for volunteers to come forward via our skills app email address for provider groups as well as the project board? The very quick answer is yes, Emily, we are. I will be going through that a little bit later, but we will be going out looking for representatives for the board, and also the provider groups. We'll also be sharing information in a later slide about the activities and meetings that you can get involved with as well.
Yeah.
Jane is asking, the Brighton Hove City Council Work and Learning Group would be a good group to connect with. Luckily, I've already been in contact with Brighton and Hove City Council, and we're endeavouring to get across to all of the skills employment and employment groups across both East, West and Brighton and Hove, so that we're not missing any groups out. Yes, sorry, someone's saying about, don't forget independent training providers as well, I think. Nick Fenn had said about it's important to have other adult providers feeding into this process, not only FE colleges. And yes, we would welcome feedback from all providers of education, whether that's ITPs, as you've said, community voluntary organisations, all sorts of anyone who provides training and provision across the area, definitely.
And we do have SCTP, the Sussex Council Training Providers, that are already involved in this group as well. And they have lots of training providers that feed into them. Caroline Wood, is there an indication of how much funding the plan could unlock? Good question. So that the whole budget for the 8 trailblazers was 4 million. Now, they haven't as in DFE, have not indicated whether that will be equally spread out between all 8 and whether there will be 500,000 per trailblazer. It really depends what we submit. So we've had to submit the first stage of funding to get us mobilised, up and running, and then another stage of funding. So some of that funding will be the data analysis, it will be the staff, it will be the workshops, it will be the research, the communications. There will be lots of different elements in this. So we have to then submit a second stage funding in the autumn. We don't know when yet. So it could be that some trailblazers are probably only, asking for 300,000, others might ask for slightly more. What I'm doing is working with the other 7 trailblazers. We catch up regularly on a weekly basis to share best practice. But at the same time, we've all had that approach where if one needs a little bit more, we tell each other so that the others can bid in for that. So we're all being very, very flexible with that. But it could be up to 500,000.
Okay. Caroline,
just to say, Anna, I don't know if Caroline's question was about unlocking money outside of that, i.e.
Okay.
cycle, and I'm not certain whether or not there's a way in which that unlocks new money as such, but the government, the Employment and Skills, the post-16 Education Act, which is going through Parliament at the moment, makes it a statutory requirement for publicly funded post-16 education providers to adapt their provision to meet the needs of identified in LSIP. So that might bend spend rather than give new money.
Yeah, sorry, I misread that. So, and then we don't know whether that will be revenue, capital, what that mix will be in terms of that spend.
Having said that, obviously there are other new funding pots coming out, like the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which is due out in April, and I would imagine that an LSIP would allow you to bid for additional or different funds to meet those particular needs as well. So there may be some there and some crossover into different government departments.
There's a question from Caroline McKiddy asking about plan to include schools, or will that be through the skills boards, local authorities? How about schools, sixth forms? So it's a good question. I think it's important that we do make sure that there is college, school representation on here, because if there's challenges that arise from the discussions with business that impact decisions that are made at schools, then that has to feed into our plans and everything. We won't know that until we start having those discussions and those insights. But that's where we would ask for the local authorities to help feed in through, and the FE colleges as well for us.
Sean's asked, can the plan change or be adapted to meet potential changing needs, or is it fixed once approved? I think the idea that it would be reviewed as it goes along. The whole idea is to make the skill system a lot more adaptable and flexible. So you would hope that the plans to enable that to happen would also be adaptable and flexible. And also a question around what size of business is this targeting? Just SMEs or larger? No, it's all businesses. Obviously, in our area of the country, we are predominantly SMEs, but we're seeking the views of all businesses, especially those in the priority sectors.
And it could be that we see trends in terms of smaller businesses have different skills gaps compared to the larger corporate companies. So it's really important that this is business that get involved regardless of size. It has to be that input from business.
One of the other requirements as well, Anna, isn't it, that we reach businesses that perhaps aren't reached by other mechanisms. So that's why the collective response from business representative organisations is critical. So CBI, IOD, Federation of Small Businesses, and the affiliated chambers, so that we reach we use the same questions, ask the same points of all businesses, whether they're affiliated to one or more of those, so that we gather as much information as possible from as many businesses of whatever size, whatever sector as possible in the Sussex area.
Yeah. I think that's covered.
We've got one more from Dan Warman asking about, can you confirm subsections of digital? Would this include a wide range of creative and digital sector, design, gaming, digital marketing?
Well, this is what needs to come out from the businesses themselves in terms of where are the gaps? Is it in the creative side? Is it in the design, the games, the engineers, the software developers? That's what we need to really identify. We do have a presentation, and we'll come on to that slightly later in terms of some of the insights that we're going to be gathering, and that will help, and some of the other data analysis that we have as well, that will help inform, or should I say, start some of those conversations. But it will be the wider digital landscape, not just coders, for example. It is more wider than that. Jeremy, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. And it's been really useful so far, I have to say, really nicely and clearly explained. I think my question is about that kind of needs analysis, really, and the fact that there's a lot of it that would have been happening already in certain sectors and in certain clusters. So, of course, it's come across really clearly that this is about gathering as much of that intelligence as possible. So I think it's probably a plea to ensure that in that comms out to employers and business networks and all the existing groups, we're making the point that this isn't just about gathering new, because the gathering new is really important, but it's building on the existing as well. Because I think for employers out there, the current landscape is full of initiatives, and I think it can be, if nothing else, probably a little bit disheartening to think, not another strategy, not another initiative, not another person asking me what my skills needs are. And so I think we just need to be conscious of how that's communicated. And equally, I guess, for many of us on the call, where we're part of these groups or have done that skills analysis, it would be nice to see if there's a way in which we can share some of that with you independently. Thank you.
No problem. So all of this, we've already been in touch with all of the skills groups and other groups as well that we mentioned. There's surveys, there's lots of insights that we're asking people to feed into us, so that when we look at appointing a data analyst, they can just start to pull all of that together in terms of what has already been done through some of these groups and everything. Like you say, it's building on the existing, as well as coming up with new, but we need to build on that existing, what has been identified, how can we now expand on that? Okay. Also, Sean has put another question. So although business focused, there are likely to be overlaps in skills needs from the public sector, who are clearly very large and an important employer. That this could be helpful in terms of existing intelligence. Yes, yeah, definitely. Also, in terms of when you look at education as well, something that I keep hearing is there is and there will be a lack of teachers and specific teachers to teach specific skills and what we're looking at and everything. So that is something that's going to have to feed into this as well, because it's how we try and so the skills gaps will look at the young people, it will look at the upskilling, the reskilling, all of the different challenges businesses have been facing and people have faced as well, in terms of they've probably been in an industry for 20-30 years, but they don't know how they can adapt to a different environment, a different sector. So I think it's got to pull on that so that we're filling these gaps. There's also a high percentage of people, adults, that don't have a qualification or don't have any specific skills in an area. How do we train that? How do we get employers to to make sure that they're still developing their staff, and they're making sure that they're investing in their staff to train and develop their skills further. So we're looking at future managers, future leaders, people to join our boards as well. So lots of things to really pull out, but we have to rely on already a lot of the stuff that exists and how we can expand on that now. I know that we are still waiting for somebody to join us, but I think what we can do is we're going to outline maybe the workshops, the next processes. We have got Nesta, who a couple of years ago developed a skills taxonomy. And basically it was looking at all the data scraping from the job boards and identified the different sectors, the different demands, the salaries. But unfortunately, that data was not open source. They have recently launched Open Jobs Observatory with the Department for Education, and we're appointing Nesta to then drill down into that data in more detail in Sussex. So we will be joined by Kath in the next few minutes, who will be able to give us an insight into the data analysis that they're going to be providing for us. But what we'll do is we'll just skip onto the next steps and how we can get everybody involved. I think we'll just go through that part first, Claire.
Okay, so looking at the next steps, as I said earlier, we'll be holding a range of workshops. At these workshops, we'll be discussing what data we've been gathering from all those existing forms of data, reports, intelligence that we've managed to draw together. We'll be taking them along to workshops, which we hope will be very much employer-based and employer-led workshops, to discuss what our initial findings are, what else we need to be looking at, what the gaps are, and also, as we've said, the future skills needs, and then review all of that information and come up with qualitative and quantitative evidence base so that we can take that forward for the what needs to change and why sections of our plan. We'll be holding 4 of these over October and November time. As you can see, the 4 areas of Sussex. Obviously, if you can't make it along to one of them, please do try and get along to another one. It's really important and huge ask if you could be promoting these workshops out to all businesses that you feel might be able to support us and contribute to them. We'll be having... Oh, sorry, go on.
I'm just going to say we're just finalising the venues. So these will be face-to-face workshops. So people can really get round the round tables and we can brainstorm ideas. So we're just finalising the venues. Although it's been really challenging, I must admit, a lot of the venues are already full. So, but we'll update this shortly.
Yeah, and we'll get that information out to everyone as soon as we can. We're going to be holding further stakeholder meetings as well, and those meetings will be after the new year, after we've collated all that intelligence that we've gathered from the workshops, so that we can bring that to the stakeholder meetings and start developing kind of the roadmaps for change, thinking about the initiatives and the innovation that we want to be including in the plan. Again, these are more likely to be virtual meetings at the moment. They are going to be, as you can see, longer half-day meetings so that we can really get down into what we need to be including within the LSIP roadmap. Is there any questions on any of the engagement activities?
I think I just want to add there as well, just so that everybody's aware that I realise not everybody will be comfortable with the face-to-face activities. So it could be that we hold some additional virtual meetings. So this isn't just that's it, that's all that's happening. There will be other virtual meetings. There will also be surveys that we'll be sending round. There'll be polls. There'll be telesales as well, so that we will appoint a company that can actually reach out to businesses and harness information on through a set list of questions. But if you have any ideas of how we can engage with business, going back to what Jeremy said, businesses might say, oh God, not another engagement session, what do I need to do? If you have any innovative, creative ways of really engaging with businesses, then please do let us know, because we need to have that business engagement. There will also be the engagement through the other business associations, Gatwick Diamond Business, Burgess Hill Business Parks, whether it's Hastings Chamber or the FSB. This is where you can feed into your members as well and harness those inputs. So this is just the workshops that we're holding, but there's lots of other engagement. And as soon as that develops, we'll put that onto the plan. It will be on our website so that you have that visibility and you can get involved through a number of different means. So yeah, it's just to let everybody know that if you've got ideas of how we can engage with business, I'm open to ideas. Let us know. That would be great. Okay. So there's a question about, are providers invited to attend the workshops? Yes, definitely. So the workshops are there for providers as well. The main aim is for businesses to get involved, but absolutely happy for providers to come along as well, because you'll see challenges from a different perspective compared to the businesses. So please do come along and have your inputs into the sessions. So it is open to everybody. What we'll do is these events for booking, we'll put them onto our website that people can register and just book to come along. They are free. There's no charge or anything like that. This is all free engagement. So I think that was the last question there. Would it make sense to ensure that senior DW? So DWP, yes, there's lots of organisations that Claire and I have involved as part of this, that we're also required to ensure that we are involving them. And DWP representative is already involved in the LSIP. So hopefully they'll be there as well. Yeah.
Okay, and then moving on to next steps and how stakeholders can be getting involved with us. There's lots of ways that we're actually looking for support from partners and stakeholders. One of them is around engagement leads. We're looking for a number of people, whether that's hopefully from the business community, but also from other partners, to support our work in engaging with businesses and stakeholders across all of Sussex. We'd like to take this forward as a matter of urgency. We do have a small budget for this, and we'll be looking for things like perhaps secondment opportunities or business representatives that might be able to provide a couple of days a week for up until around Christmas initially, to be able to support us with our work going forward and really get out there and be talking to different sectors, different types of organisations about the work that we're doing, the skills needs, and how those businesses can be involved. Then, of course, we've talked a little bit about the LSIP board and the subgroup representations. This will definitely be something that we're going to be coming out to you about very soon. We're just finalising some communications to send out around how to get involved as a board representative. As Anna said earlier, we're looking for senior decision makers to join the board. We're looking for representatives from business groups, from the skills advisory panels and LEPs, local authorities, business providers and skills network representatives as well. We'll be, as I've said, sending information out very shortly about that on how to apply. It will be open application for that. The other thing obviously is about we really need stakeholders and partners to be spreading the word for us and being really proactive in getting the word out to businesses, and being that conduit and providing that kind of like two-way flow of information. And also just getting involved in the workshops, coming and attending the workshops, the stakeholder meetings, and really having that proactive engagement with us. We can't do this all on our own, so we need all the support we can get from all of our partners. I think there might be some queries on the chat around this.
So I just saw from Ian, he was asking about what specific actions would you like town chambers to take to encourage engagement from the membership. So Claire and I are just finalising a spec or communications pack that will go out to all of the employer representative groups, the town chambers, the business organisations and others, and that will help guide you all. I think that will evolve because as we appoint somebody to look at the data analysis and then start to develop some of the key questions, then there might be a second phase and everything in terms of some key questions that we want you to go out to your members to start engaging with them, getting their feedback, their input, and then how you feed that back to us. So we're creating that information pack. We hope to have something soon, but these next couple of weeks are really just looking at gathering some of that data, appointing people, and then we can come out to everybody with some key asks. So that will evolve over the next couple of weeks. So if you could just bear with us, Ian, we will get that out to you and everybody else as well. I know that Dan's already answered, hybrid sessions can be a little bit tricky. I have been looking at this already. A few weeks ago, I did start looking at this. I think the easiest way would be for us to have face-to-face events and virtual events. And that's the way we can do it. So if people are not happy going to a face-to-face workshop or it doesn't tie in with their diary, we'll make sure that we add some virtual activity as well, because that way we can get that engagement regardless of the area or where people are, so they don't have to travel. And great to see the support from CMI as well, so thank you. Well, if you can, I think we must obviously have your details already, Daisy, so thank you for that. So Jeffrey, very happy for colleagues to speak at the planned events and do organise a bespoke one. Yeah, so so a feature in the Gatwick in the Diamond magazine would also give a wider reach. So I'm happy to Jeff to come along to whether it's your event, Jeff, or other people's activities, whether it's myself or Claire, to come along, speak to your members, run through what the plan's all about, and then set up a workshop with your members so that we can get that feedback. So rather than us just giving you some papers and documents, I'm happy to come along. We just need to know when you're having your meetings and everything so we can fit that in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to keep us very busy, that's for sure.
Keep us out of trouble.
Yeah.
Jeremy said that Plumpton will be establishing new industry liaison boards for a number of sectors as part of their involvement in the SDF project. And it'd be good to align with this. Totally agree, Jeremy. I think that's something that we can take forward and have a conversation about. I think that'd be really useful, and obviously the two projects do align really well, so should be working together.
Brilliant. So, okay. I've just wanted to see if Dan, I know I was very brief in terms of, sorry, Jeremy mentioned the SDF, the Strategic Development Fund, and I gave a very brief overview. I just wondered whether, Dan, you were able just to elaborate a little bit more on that, just for colleagues, whilst we're waiting for Nesta to join us.
I can do an 8-minute warm-up to keep warm if you like, Anna. Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
The Strategic Development Fund, as Anna said, is aligned to LSIP. Would it be easier if I just shared a few slides?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I used them yesterday and they work quite well. Just bear with me for a second. So, can you see those?
Yes.
So this SDF, as well as LSIP, came out is the first tranche of money that's coming out of the Skills for Job white paper, which is going through Parliament at the moment. And nationally, there was £65 million. And as the first bullet point said, it needs to colleges and providers need to build stronger links between employers and them. The money was split 60% capital, 40% revenue, and green tech was a theme. So Sussex, under Chichester College Group, supported by FE Sussex, which is the membership organisation for FE and sixth form colleges in Sussex, was successful. And there's the split of money by each of the projects that were the maximum that we can all apply for. And we're currently going through that application process at the moment. The first one is led by BASVIC and includes all further education and sixth form colleges. And that's developing a carbon literacy course linked for 16 to 18-year-olds. And that's currently underway, and we're going to test and model it in the start of January, and then roll it out across the country. We're also exploring what we can do below level 3 for learners that are not at that level. So for students with SEND, but also operating at GCSE grade 4. The second one is establishing electric vehicle training centres. So this is led by GB Met with ourselves at East Sussex and Chichester, and there'll be 4 centres led by a big one in Shoreham, plus 2 one in Hastings, 1 in Eastbourne. And again, this is about developing specialist curriculum linked to the electric vehicles coming out of their warranty and then going into normal garages and settings. So upskilling the workforce, but also preparing our current students for those particular maintenance activities. The third one is around alternative energies in hydrogen, led by Chichester. And this is more commercial alternative energies and looking at centres of excellence in those areas in the middle. And again, building and developing a range of programmes for upskilling for adults already in the workforce, and then embedding some of that programme and development into young people's activities, and also obviously people looking to retrain and develop. So for ourselves, we're exploring wind farms linked to New Haven and the array out on the south coast as an example in that second point. Jeremy, you might need to help me with number 4 because there are some I don't understand, but this is transitioning land management towards zero carbon, led by Plumpton working with Brinsbury. So we've got the 2 land-based expertise across Sussex. And these are the areas of focus. I don't know if you wanted to say anything, Jeremy, other than what's on those bullet points.
Yeah, very happy to surmise by just saying it's all about managing that wonderful balance of productivity and sustainability, with new agricultural and environmental bills having passed through the Houses over the last year. So yeah, great opportunity. Thank you.
Fantastic, thanks, Jeremy. Final one, which is around a network of decarbonisation academies. East Sussex College Group's leading this with GB Met and Chichester. And these will be mainly around domestic installation of solar PV, source heat pumps, micro wind, etc., etc. Sorry, these slideshows was for an East Sussex grouping. So in East Sussex, we're linking it to a town deal project in Hastings, and Eastbourne, we're working on a business case to develop a centre with an employer who actually installs these areas, and we'll be working on a range of new courses and linking with a range of employers. So a lot of action and a lot of money and resource to spend between now and March. So all of the college leads are now working on their DFE projects, grant letters, East Sussex College, I'm pleased to say, got their grant letter yesterday. So we're off the starter block, and I know Basvik did as well. The others are just a few days behind. We're establishing a project management team. We're looking at what works as well. So York College have got a really interesting electric vehicle training centre that uses Lucas Newell manufacturing training. So we're looking to model that across the Sussex area, and in Manchester there's a decarbonisation academy that we're looking to model alongside some other developments there. And obviously seamlessly feeding back into LSIP, we're feeding into LSIP to make sure that there's the right level of employer engagement linked to construction engineering, but also a green thread running through everything that LSIP is trying to do, which we've heard a lot from Claire and Anna today. I'll stop sharing, and I hope that's a helpful canter through.
Thank you.
7 minutes, there we go, we've got 1 minute, and hopefully Kath will magically appear and we can seamlessly go into that.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Dan. So hopefully that's given everybody a further insight into the two projects and how we're working together. I just also wanted to mention that one of the other trailblazers that also got awarded was Kent Invicta Chamber. So of course we work very closely with them. They're right on our doorstep as well. So it's an opportunity to really push the skills agenda forward in the Southeast. I think, it's fantastic that we've got 2 LSIPs and 2 Strategic Development Fund bids as well, because Kent got theirs as well, being developed in this area to really push what needs to happen with regards to skills. We've also been working closely with the skills advisory panels, because I know there was a question about what the skills advisory panels from the LEPs they do. And so we have also created a joint working statement that is on our website. And that's just to show that we are partnering together, we're working together. They have a lot of data analysis and insights that will help feed into our proposal. And the aim as well is there are national surveys that the British Chambers have done as we feed into the British Chambers. There may be surveys that other business organisations around the table have carried out. And that data and that analysis will be key as well to identifying some gaps. So that it's really important. And I just want to stress the importance of this being business-led. Having that business engagement can only really come from all of you, to make sure that you can push this out to all of your contacts. You get businesses to be involved in this project so that we can make it a success. We've been chosen as a trailblazer. We need to make it a success so we can really close those gaps and start to make sure that businesses or individuals have got those opportunities. They've got the skills, they're being developed, they're being trained, and that's meeting the needs of business. So I'm just going to stop there. I'll just see if anyone else has got any questions, so we can open it up to Q&A whilst we wait for our guest to join us from Nesta. I know she was in a meeting, so hopefully the meeting should finish shortly. She was due to finish at 4 o'clock, so she should join us very, very shortly. But are there any other questions that anybody wanted to ask about any of the projects that we've talked about today? Any questions at all? I can't see any hands up. No? And here's somebody typing. So I just wanted to, I don't
Jeremy's
know.
got Jeremy and
yeah.
Augusti
And Michelle,
as well.
yeah. So Jeremy.
Yeah, it's just come to me actually as we've been discussing things this afternoon that one of the biggest barriers to business growth, business development, business improvement that I've always observed up and down the country, particularly working with organisations in the food and drink sector, SMEs, big businesses, is that whilst they're quite comfortable identifying what their existing future skills are, they're not quite as good always at identifying what their future skills needs are. Without wanting to cast aspersions over every company in the food and drink industry, I think that's often because they're not always clear about what their own future strategy is. So I guess it's an observation and maybe a question to come back to. It's about how through this process might we be able to support employers to understand what their future skills needs are, because I genuinely think that there's a lot of businesses out there that don't know.
And I think that you're very right. And if anything, the landscape is completely different now, that we don't know what's going to happen next year, let alone when businesses usually develop a plan that's supposed to look at 3 or 5 years. You know, we don't know what's going to happen in the next few months, given the challenges we've all been facing the last 18 months. So I think, yeah, that's going to be a really key question in terms of how a business is going to adapt to the changing landscape, how they're going to grow, and how they even going to think about what support they need for the future. Yeah. Okay. Michelle, hello there.
Hi there. Just a quick one, really. You mentioned you'd like us to engage sort of with our members as best we can. Do you have any idea when your communication plan will be ready in terms of information that we can disseminate? Do you have a timeline for that at the moment? Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. So Claire and I were literally discussing this a couple of hours ago. We're hoping to finalise it in the next week, I would say. That's our aim. Hopefully it won't be too long after that, but that's our aim to get that communicated out to everybody. So do you agree, Claire?
Thank you.
Sorry, I've just realised I was on mute. Yes, totally agree. We're working on everything as quickly as we can. Being a small team, it's kind of prioritisation, but yes, we do want to get everything out to you as soon as possible. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And Kat has managed to join us now as well. So
Hi there.
Kat.
I'm so sorry I'm a few minutes late. Previous meeting overran.
No problems at all. And thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to hand over to you because I have briefly mentioned to everybody that's joined us today that you're going to give an overview of what Nesta have been doing and what you're going to be working on for our particular project in Sussex. So I don't know if you have any slides, if you want to share your screen. Yeah,
I will do. And I have to apologise. I've got a very enthusiastic leaf blower outside my window. And so it may be a bit noisy. Apologies for that. Let me just try and share my screen a second. Okay, is that all right? Can you kind of see the slides?
yes. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll try and keep it short. So I'm Kath Sleeman. I'm Head of Data Discovery at the charity Nesta. And today is just about introducing you to a project that we've recently soft launched called Open Jobs Observatory. And so just in case you haven't heard of Nesta, I thought this is kind of our strategy at a glance. Last year, we went through quite a large structural reorganisation and kind of our focus narrowed to these 3 missions. And so this is kind of what we focus on these days. So a fairer start is about reducing inequality in early childhood. A healthy life is about reducing obesity and rates of loneliness. And then a sustainable future, and this is where the work fits that I'm going to talk about today, has 2 missions. The first is about reducing household carbon dioxide emissions, so encouraging people to switch from like gas to heat pumps. And the second focus is on improving labour productivity, which is where this work sits. So the kind of lens through which we look at labour market productivity is through labour market information. And so the idea is if we can improve LMI, then through that we can improve productivity. And in the UK, we have 3 key gaps in labour market information. The first is that we have no official data on the transitions that people make between occupations, so how people move between jobs. And the reason that's so important is because if we have like a structural shock like COVID, and we need to provide advice to people on other industries and occupations that they can transition between, you know, ideally we should be basing that by, we should be kind of giving that advice based on the past transitions that others have already made. But we have no official data, so we can't do that at the moment. We also have no data, no granular or timely data on skill demands. So we do have the employer skills survey that comes out once every 2 years, but there's a year's delay between the survey being in the field and then the results of that survey being published. And it also tends to just focus on the very broad groups of skills. So things like computing skills, but it's not kind of granular enough to tell us what types of computing skills are in kind of short supply. And then lastly, we have no data on green jobs or green skills, which is really surprising. So if we're going to kind of encourage this transition to net zero, we really need granular data on what job titles are in green industries and what skills do those jobs require. There's a couple of different reasons for those kind of 3 gaps. In the UK, some types of labour market information have been kind of commodified and sold. So if you want to analyse job adverts, for example, you'll need to purchase a data set of job adverts to do so. And that can cost tens of thousands of pounds. And the same with resumes or CVs. You'll then face restrictions about what you can publish. And so it leads to this tendency towards writing kind of one-off reports about data sets rather than kind of creating tools and kind of permanent improvements in labour market information. Some variables aren't collected or published. We have no official skills taxonomy in the UK, so it leads us to kind of speaking about skills in different ways. We kind of lack a kind of common framework, and all these problems stem in part because no one group in the UK kind of owns the provision of labour market information, and so everyone, us included, is trying to do their bit, but it, you know, perhaps, you know, ideally we would have a labour market information council. And what we've seen recently in the last few years is that others are starting to kind of get on the same bandwagon and kind of talking about the lack of labour market information in the UK and the impact it has. I won't go through the slide, it's very detailed, but it just talks about the links, the ways in which poor labour or missing labour market information can impact productivity. So you can get things like firms may underinvest in training because they're unsure of the kind of new skills that their staff should be acquiring, or you could get a misallocation of training investments. Some people may spend longer in unemployment because they don't realise that the skills that they've already got are actually really suitable for another industry where there are more vacancies. There are also these spillover effects as well. So it can slow down the green transition because people aren't confident about what jobs are green or what skills they need. And it can create kind of barriers to diversity because employers may, if they don't know the skills that they need for the job, if they can't name them, then they may impose degree requirements. And sometimes a degree requirement can kind of act as a glass ceiling. So what are we doing about it? So what we've tried to do is we've launched a project called Open Jobs Observatory, and in essence what it is that we are scraping job adverts ourselves with the permission of the job boards, and we've been collecting job adverts now since January, so we've got several million, and we then process those job adverts and we extract insights from them, and we then publish those insights and make them freely available to others. That's the kind of the gist of the Open Jobs Observatory. So what we're trying to do is fill 2 of those data gaps: the lack of information on skills being demanded by employers and the lack of information about green jobs. So like I said, we collect adverts daily with the permission of job boards, and we've just released our first set of aggregate data, and you can find that on GitHub. And so now we're looking to develop partnerships to kind of test and share the insights that we're generating. And that's how we came to partner with the Sussex Chamber of Commerce. So we collect daily and we extract then key insights from every job advert, like job titles and descriptions, salaries, locations. We then have a deduplication process because the same advert may be posted repeatedly. And so we look for duplicates. And then there's an enrichment stage in which we kind of standardize salaries and locations, and we extract skills that are mentioned within the text of the job advert. And then finally, we generate a series of aggregate data. So that's things like the volume of job adverts by region, what skills are demanded in what region, what salaries are associated with particular skills. And we can also look for keywords within the adverts themselves. This is just an example of kind of the preliminary types of insights that we can provide from the observatory. So this kind of map, this is a kind of very stylized map of the UK. And so we have Scotland at the top there and Cornwall down the south. And each block here shows all the job adverts that were advertised in that region, and then all the skills that were mentioned in those job adverts. And it breaks those skills or puts them into these broad skill groups. So in the likes of London, you can see that London has slightly more mentions of skills that fall within the kind of ICT group, as you'd expect, really. The other types of insights we can provide is we have an algorithm to detect jobs in green industries based on the terms mentioned within the job advert. So we can identify job titles. We can identify kind of new and emerging skills, as well as the skills required for a particular job. One of our skill groups there, you can see, is transversal skills. That's made up of around 400 different skills that we call transversal because they're required in very different occupations. So they're the likes of communication skills, writing, planning, teamwork, etc. And because we're extracting salaries too, we can start to give people a sense of what salaries are associated with what skills. And so that's what this chart shows. So one thing to bear in mind is that only around 60% of adverts mention a salary or a salary range. So that's why you see these quite large kind of salary ranges associated with each skill. So we have cleaning services, the other skills within that skill cluster typically associated with quite low salaries. And then as we go round the circle, I think we finish with, I think it's web and software development, those skills in that kind of cluster associated with the highest salaries. But there's some large ranges there as well. So this is the skills taxonomy that kind of underlies the Open Jobs Observatory that we created. It's based on the ESCO skills taxonomy, the European Skills, Competencies and Occupations Framework. So that's an open taxonomy that describes around 10,000 skills. And when we talk about skills, it's in the kind of broader sense. So it's skills, knowledge, competencies, aptitudes, values, programming languages and the like. So very much a kind of a broad definition of skills. So ESCO contains around 10,000 skills. We don't look for those words exactly within the job adverts because one skill can be expressed in kind of numerous different ways. So what we do is that ESCO defines each skill and they provide alternative labels, so alternative terms that are used to describe that skill. And we use those, so we call those surface forms. So within each job advert, we're searching for 100,000 different terms, which then represent skills, and then we've clustered those skills to form this taxonomy or hierarchy here. So long-term plans for the observatory. The two most important things to us are stabilizing our data pipeline. So that means continuing to improve the kind of quality of the data that we're extracting from job adverts. And the second thing that we really want to focus on is developing partnerships like we're doing with yourselves. So to try and test the quality of the data and identify the most useful data for users. So what kind of series would be most helpful for others. In addition to that, we hope to kind of make monthly data releases of the kind of aggregate data. We also plan to conduct a number of deep dives, so into issues like green skills and jobs, regional skill specialties and the likes. We'd love to create a public tool, but this is all dependent on gaining funding, so we'll have to see how we go. And also we take a kind of open code approach. So we publish all our code and our methodologies as we go. So you can see our code all on GitHub. And what we'd love to do is kind of package some of that up so that others, particularly within government, can make use of those algorithms as well. And then just finally, perhaps just one slide on our partnership with yourselves. So we'll begin kind of later this month, and then we'll go through to the end of March next year. And the aims of the project are twofold: to test the quality of the insights from the observatory and to build a methodology for sharing and testing new sources of LMI. Labour market information doesn't change that much over time, so it's kind of exciting to have a new source, but we need a methodology for kind of for testing it before it's kind of applied widely. The kind of key output that we'll produce will be a set of indicators that I hope will be really useful for local businesses and colleges in Sussex. At a minimum, that'll be a breakdown of your local skill demands, and we'll contrast that with how your skill demands compare to neighbouring areas and then the UK as a whole. But I'd really like to go beyond that. So if possible, I'd like to provide you with some insights on local green jobs. Any kind of particular sectors of interest in Sussex that you'd like to focus on, we could pick one and provide some insights on that. And that last point there, insights on particular features of jobs, it probably sounds quite vague, but any kind of keywords that you're interested in, we should be able to extract. So things like remote working, we might be able to provide insights there. Jobs that require no experience, we've found that the kind of percentage of those jobs varies quite a lot across the country. So it might be interesting to see kind of what that looks like in Sussex. And things like transversal skills as well, in case that's of interest. And so I think perhaps say in February, perhaps late January next year, we'll provide a workshop where we present these kind of preliminary indicators to you all and gather your feedback as to, you know, what's useful for you and what changes we can make. And then we'll present the kind of final report at the end of March. So that's a very whistle-stop tour of of the Open Jobs Observatory and our partnership with yourselves. So this is the team involved. It's a kind of mix of data engineers and data scientists. And that's it. Why don't I'll finish there, and then I'm really happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Kath. That's fantastic. I have got a couple of questions that have come up in the chat. I think Jeremy's put in keyword viticulture as a key area. So let me just, so I can see everybody's comments here. So other adverts, is the data analysed from adverts directly from employers or agencies and employers?
So we're scraping job boards. So an employer will post their advert on the job board, and then we will scrape it. We scrape overnight, every night. What that means is that we won't always know the name of the employer, because if it's posted by an agency, then we may just have the name of the agency rather than the employer.
And how local will this data drill down? Will it be town, postcode? I think we've already discussed this.
That's such a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it depends on what we're looking at. And so for an area like London, people don't, when they post the job advert, they don't say East London, West London, they just say London. So it's a really large area. But in the other areas, if you've got a city or a town that's well known, then we might be able to go down to that kind of that level. But we'll just have to see. I think for something like when we look at green jobs, because there are so few green jobs, we think they make up about 3% of all job adverts. We may have to look at an even broader region than just Sussex. So it may have to be like the southeast.
Thank you. And I know there was a question from Holly in terms of whether it's based on formally advertised roles. So it would be from job boards, as you mentioned, rather than word of mouth or businesses putting something on their website. This is more through job boards, isn't it?
That's right. So if it appears on a job board, we will catch it. But that does mean, and it's important to say, that we will underrepresent certain sectors. So probably like primary industries is a good example. We see fewer adverts advertised online, and also certain kind of creative sectors like perhaps the performing arts, where work is awarded not via job advert, but via like an audition process or a tender, something like that, then we're not going to be detecting those skills either. So yeah, job adverts are great. They kind of can provide you with much more kind of timely data and a kind of granular look, but they're by no means perfect. So that's kind of important to say.
And I know that Caroline's also asked a question about other organisations that use job advert data or MC. So I know that we will harness and gather insights as well from local authorities and from the skills advisory panels, and that might be MC data, it might be other surveys. And then with your data, that's when we will put it all together to really start to identify some of those challenges and those gaps and everything.
Yeah, that's right. So just to contrast what we're doing with EMSI, so EMSI is a much larger organisation than we are. I think they're now, they've recently merged with Burning Glass. So they will scrape a higher proportion of job adverts than we will. And the kind of difference and the gap that we're trying to fill is that in order to access that information, it can be quite expensive. And we'd like to kind of provide free insights to others, so that anyone can access without kind of having to buy a license to data. And the other thing we'd like to do is we'd like to make our methodology open. So that's why we're publishing all our code, so people can see how we're extracting skills. And it also enables us to talk quite openly about the limitations of what we're doing as well.
And I've got a question here from Stephen. As it develops, are you able to identify success factors for those who then gain employment from the adverts, or can you only scrape from the front end, as in the advert process, and then just make assumptions from that?
I'd love, yeah. Unfortunately, we're just seeing the advert. That would be wonderful, wouldn't it, to be able to kind of see how many applied.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Indeed did a piece of work, would have been last year at least, where they were, because they can see that data, kind of who's applying to the job adverts. They did a piece of research with the Central Bank of Ireland, where they could track the number of times an advert was clicked on, I think, and use that as a measure of kind of pressure in certain sectors. So I think that's really interesting.
It is, and I know that Indeed have also been working with their British chambers as well in terms of some other data and insights. So I'll definitely reach out to them to make sure we get that information, and it can help inform some further information for us, definitely. But thank you so much for sharing that, Kath, with everyone. Does anybody have any questions that they wanted to ask Kath? I think, like a lot of comments that are going on there, it is a really fantastic approach, and you know, I think it's quite unique. I know that we're the only LSIP that are working with Nesta in developing this, so I think it's a unique approach for us, and hopefully it will give us a really good foundation as well in terms of those insights and that data that we need.
Well, thank you so much for partnering with us and giving us the opportunity to kind of trial and test it out. And I should have said too, the pilot was funded by the Department for Education, who are also supporting the LSIP. So hopefully it's a kind of, you know, we're joining several projects together here.
Yeah. There's another question here. To address the shortage, can you track the length that an advert is posted for? And if it's long in duration, could that indicate that the search for someone with advertised skills was more difficult and possible skill shortage? Or, you know, can you track the length of time that adverts are on?
Yeah, we're not doing it at the moment. It's a kind of, I'm not sure as an indicator, because I think if the advert was taken down like the day someone was appointed, it would be a great indicator of kind of skill shortages or pressure in that particular sector. But from what we understand, the adverts are typically sold for a number of weeks. So you'll get like a kind of 6-week deal, and often then adverts kind of stay up, or they only come down when the advert is closed, not necessarily when the position was filled. And there's also issues like ghost adverts, which are adverts that stay up for a long period of time.
And what if an advert is reposted? Because you said you can pick up duplications. Okay.
And I noticed actually NZ Burning Glass have started, I saw a presentation from them recently where they'd posted a kind of statistic based on that metric. So the number of duplicate adverts for a kind of unique advert, they had kind of calculated that statistic. And I think that could be a really interesting way of getting at it. Another way to kind of get at shortages would be things like mentions of immediate start, or sign-on bonuses we've started seeing recently in certain sectors, which I think could be interesting. So we might be able to get an insight into that.
And I think it's going to be a really interesting time in terms of gathering that data and that analysis now that the furlough scheme is coming to an end, and there are already about 1 million jobs in the UK that were being advertised and employers were looking for. Be interesting to see how that changes in Sussex and how that evolves, whether there's more vacancies or less, and whether it throws specific skills needs, whether jobs have been advertised a lot longer and whether there's a greater demand for certain jobs. So I think this data and analysis that Nesta are going to be providing for the Chamber, for the LSIP, is going to be really key, and it's going to help throw out some really useful insights. So yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Did anyone have any final questions or anything at all for Kath or for Claire and I or Dan on the LSIP?
There's one from Brett in the questions about it dedupes, doesn't it, adverts? So if they're on a different platform but the same advert, then it'll only be recorded once.
That's right. And we're not just looking for exact matches, we're looking for kind of partial matches. So if an advert gets reposted but they alter the first sentence, then we should still be able to tell that it's a duplicate. But at the same time, if it's for 2 different regions, we won't call it a duplicate. So if a company kind of has a nationwide recruitment scheme and they're recruiting kind of one of a particular role in lots of different towns and cities across the UK, then we won't assume that they're duplicates, that they're different. They'll be counted as different positions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kath, for coming along today to share those insights, and we look forward to working with you on this project.
Fantastic. I'll log off. Lovely to meet you all. Cheers. Bye.
I just wanted to, Paul, you've got your hand raised.
No, I was just clapping. It was brilliant. Really, really interesting.
Brilliant. Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate just a few final passing thoughts, and then I'll hand over to Claire to see if she had anything else as well. But the LSIP is really to strengthen the links between employers and further education and providers. And it's to place employers at the heart of defining the local skill system. That's why it's so important that we engage with businesses, because it's an opportunity to improve the skill system, which is crucial to building an agile, adaptable workforce for the future. So it's to support people to get the skills our economy needs to really thrive. We've got a fantastic opportunity as a trailblazer to really take this forward and be a leading area for the whole of the UK. It will give people the opportunities to progress in their careers and make sure people can get access to training and learning flexibly throughout their entire lives, and to support businesses, growth industries, to make sure that they are able to recruit people. So I thought I'd just end on those few comments and notes, but I didn't know if Claire wanted to say anything further as well.
No, I think you've just summed that up brilliantly. So I think, yes, perfect place to leave it there.
Wonderful. As we said, we will send out further communication. We will make sure that we communicate this out to everyone, keep you all updated on the workshops, on the surveys, how you can all get involved. and how we can come along and attend all of your meetings as well. So thank you very much for joining us today, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.